Story 1. The Stranger in the Parking Garage. Unsettling silence. It was close to midnight when Emily left her office building. She'd stayed late again, her heels clicking sharply against the concrete as she entered the underground parking garage. Normally, the late-night silence offered her a strange sort of clarity, just her keys, and the echo of her own footsteps. But tonight, there was something off. The garage felt heavier, airless, as though it was holding its breath. She noticed a flickering fluorescent light above, buzzing erratically, casting little spasms of shadow across the rows of cars. Turning the corner toward her sedan, she suddenly felt the urge to look back. Her chest tightened. At the far end of the garage, half hidden behind a support pillar, she thought she saw a figure standing unnaturally still, just watching. She blinked. But when the light flickered again, the figure wasn't there. Emily tried to laugh it off, nerves maybe, but her hand gripped her car keys like a weapon. Somewhere deep inside, she knew tonight wasn't just another overtime night. She sped up, forcing calm breaths, but the silence was too loud, pressing against her eardrums. Suddenly, clang. A metallic clang rang behind her, loud and sharp like metal dropping on concrete. She jumped, spinning around, only to see nothing. Heart hammering, she fumbled for her phone in her bag. The message was clear now. She wasn't alone. Footsteps in the shadows. Emily tried dialing her boyfriend, but the concrete wall swallowed the signal. No bars. Desperation prickled across her skin as she remembered the figure she thought she'd seen. She moved quickly, pretending she wasn't afraid, but each step echoed back as if the garage was answering her. Then came it, footsteps, perfectly timed to hers, slightly offbeat, like an echo with intent. She froze. The footsteps froze too. For several seconds the garage was silent, except for the hum of the flickering light. Emily whispered under her breath, "Nope, you're imagining it." She forced her legs to move again. The footsteps picked up again, this time closer. Her car was in sight now. Relief surged through every nerve in her body. Salvation was just steps away. But then she saw it, a faint movement in her rearview mirror across the aisle. A man, tall and lean, casually sliding between cars. He was closer now, but pretending not to look at her. His posture was off, too casual, like waiting for the right second. Emily clutched her keys as if they were a blade. "Don't panic, don't run, you're fine," she whispered. She reached her car door, pressed the unlock button desperately. The headlights blinked, but in that split second, the man stopped in the shadows and smiled. His teeth gleamed under the flickering light, slow, deliberate, as though he knew the chase was about to begin. The false escape. She yanked open the driver's door, practically diving inside and slamming it shut. Her hands shook as she jammed the key into the ignition, whispering, "Come on, come on." The car roared to life, and her relief lasted all of 2 seconds, until she looked up. There he was, standing right in front of her headlights, his smile stretched unnaturally wide, hands dangling at his sides. Emily honked furiously, the sound blasting through the garage. The stranger didn't even flinch. He simply tilted his head, studying her. She threw the car into reverse, tires screeching, but as she backed out, she realized his game wasn't to block her. It was to corral her. Every exit she tried led to another strategic position where he seemed to be waiting, stepping out from between cars at exactly the right moment, as though he could predict her moves. Her panic rose to frenzy. Is he alone? She thought. Every car she drove past felt like it might conceal someone else crouching in the shadows. She slammed the brakes. Her hands gripped the wheel. Then a sudden scraping. From the back seat, Emily's blood froze. Very slowly, she turned her head. In the rearview mirror behind her, movement. A second face. Another man slowly rising up, eyes wide, lips curling into a silent grin. She wasn't trapped outside the car. She was already trapped inside it. The shattering confrontation. She screamed and lurched forward, slamming the car against a post with a bone-rattling crash. The stranger in the back seat was thrown sideways long enough for her to shove the door open and scramble out. Pain shot through her leg, but adrenaline drove her. She bolted toward the stairwell. Behind her, the doors of her car slammed open, and the rapid thud of footsteps pounded after her. Emily's lungs burned as she burst into the stairwell, spiraling up flight after flight. The footsteps echoed closer every second. She didn't dare look back, only shoving herself upward, gripping the rail to haul her body faster. Her mind snarled, "If they catch me here, no one will even know." Finally, she shoved through the door into the street-level lobby. Empty, deserted. The glass of the building's front entrance glared under street lamps. Safety seemed inches away, but when she tried yanking it open, locked. Only employees had after-hours keycards. She beat her fists against the glass, screaming. Her reflection stared back, pale and wild-eyed. Then, like a nightmare reloading, both men appeared at the stairwell door, panting, smiling, blocking her path backward. She was cornered like a fly in a jar. The vanishing revelation. In her frenzy, Emily spotted something on the reception desk across the lobby, a phone, sprinting barefoot now, ignoring shards of broken glass she'd stepped on. She vaulted over the counter and seized it. Her hands trembled as she dialed 911. "Please, please, someone's..." But when she peeked out again, the lobby was empty. The stairwell door swayed open, but no one was there. Her words jammed in her throat. They were gone. The silence returned, pressing heavier than before. The dispatcher's voice snapped through the line. "Hello? What's your emergency?" Emily struggled to explain, choking over her own words. By the time security swept through the building, no one was found. No footprints, no second figure in her wrecked car. The police chalked it up to stress, imagination, maybe even self-inflicted crash injuries. They let her go home. 2 nights later, sleep finally dragged her under. At 3:17 a.m., her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Groggy, she reached for it. A text glowed on her lock screen from an unknown number. "Next time, don't scream so loud. We almost had you." She dropped the phone, heart slamming, realizing the men hadn't vanished. They'd simply chosen to wait until she was home, where she felt safe. Story 2. The knock at the window. The first knock. It was a humid summer night when Marcus found himself alone in his small suburban house. His wife was away visiting her mother, and the only company he had was the faint hum of the ceiling fan and the soft buzz of insects outside. He was halfway through a late-night documentary when it began, a knock. Very soft, deliberate, 3 slow taps against the living room window. At first, Marcus dismissed it, probably a branch scraping against the glass, but curiosity tugged at him. He muted the TV and listened. Silence. The street outside was empty, bathed in the pale glow of a distant streetlight. He pressed his face closer to the glass but saw nothing, only the shapes of bushes shifting faintly in the breeze. Just as he backed away, the knock returned. This time louder, 3 precise knocks like knuckles pressing firmly on glass. Marcus' heart skipped. His house was single level, meaning whoever knocked was only a few feet away from him, separated by nothing but the thin pane of glass. He yanked the curtain shut, muttering nervously to himself. The quiet stretched again, so long that he convinced himself it was over. But then, a muffled whisper, faint as if someone were pressing their mouth against the other side of the window. He couldn't make out the words, but it was followed by a small, chilling chuckle. Marcus's knees tightened involuntarily. When he finally forced himself to look again, he noticed something new. On the fogged glass of his window, written clearly with a finger, were the words, "I see you." More than one knock. Marcus tried to rationalize. Maybe a neighbor's prank? Teenagers messing around? But his neighborhood was quiet, mostly retirees. The idea of kids sneaking around this late felt unlikely. He grabbed his phone to call the police, hands trembling, but froze after one glance at the window. The words were gone, wiped clean. He turned every lock on the doors and shut every curtain in the house. He told himself it was fine, false alarm. He sat back on the couch, trying to focus on TV again. Just when his nerves settled, another knock erupted. But not at the living room window this time. It came from the bedroom, louder, more insistent. Again, 3 sharp raps. Marcus bolted upright. "What the hell?" he whispered. Slowly, he moved down the hallway, every step echoing. His phone in one hand like a lifeline, the other gripping a fireplace poker. He reached the bedroom door, silence, then knock, knock, knock. The glass trembled with pressure from the outside. He clenched his jaw, forcing himself to yank the curtain aside. His body went cold instantly. No person, no shadow. Just the faint impression of a handprint pressed on the glass, sliding slowly downward until it vanished. Panicked, Marcus backed away, tripping over the edge of the rug. His phone buzzed suddenly and slipped from his sweaty hands. He picked it up, ready to dial emergency services, but froze. The notification on his screen wasn't from the police app or a call. It was a text message from an unknown number. It read, "Window looks clean now. Try the back door." The back door. Marcus's chest heaved as though he'd run miles. Every instinct screamed at him to stay put, to lock himself in, but the text, it was too specific. He crept toward the kitchen at the back of the house, each light he passed flickering on as if reluctant to offer him safety. His ears strained for sound beyond the thump of his own heart. At the end of the hallway he saw it, his back door. A plain sliding glass door leading to his yard. He had locked it earlier, hadn't he? He tried to remember, but memory failed. He stared at it now and felt waves of dread. Because there was movement, a faint shadow pacing just beyond the glass. The porch light wasn't on, making the outside a mirror of blackness. He stepped closer, breath shallow, and that's when the shadow stilled. He could hear faint breathing on the other side of the glass. Then, a hand smacked against it, not knocking this time, pressing hard enough that the glass creaked. A long smear dragged down the pane, deliberate and slow. Marcus leapt back. Then came another sound, his phone vibrating in his palm. Another message. "Don't move. I want to see if you flinch." His body stiffened as if frozen in place. He looked up, and through the glass, though details were blurred, he made out a pale, wide grin. The figure outside whispered something he couldn't hear, then suddenly vanished into the dark yard. For a single moment, Marcus felt relief drain into him, until he noticed condensation on the inside of the sliding door, a fresh handprint forming on his side of the glass. Someone was already inside. The unseen intruder. Marcus staggered backward, holding his breath, eyes darting around the kitchen. How could they have come in? The locks were untouched. The door was tightly shut. But the handprint was real, the fog still dissipating. He whispered to himself, "You're not alone in here." The house had become a maze of silence. Every creak in the walls felt amplified. Slowly he raised the poker like a spear, inching toward the hall. His phone buzzed again, this time a picture message. He opened it with shaking hands and felt his stomach lurch. It was a photo taken from inside the house of him, standing right there in the kitchen at that exact moment. Marcus spun, wild eyes scanning every corner, every doorway. Nothing. He shouted, voice breaking, "Leave me the hell alone!" His own echo answered back, mocking him. He forced himself to move, room by room, flicking on lights, trying to flush out whoever had slipped inside. But the house remained empty, or at least seemed to. He crouched, checking behind furniture, sweeping closets open, never letting go of the poker. After 20 minutes, exhaustion hit and doubt crept in. Had he lost his mind? Still catching his breath, Marcus returned to the living room. He nearly collapsed when he found his front curtain open again. Wide open. The window glass was covered in fresh writing. Big letters this time scrawled across the pane. It read, "Stop looking." He didn't realize right away that the letters were written backward, facing him clearly from the inside. The final reveal. Marcus snapped and bolted out the front door. He didn't care if the intruder was inside or out. He just needed neighbors, needed voices, needed proof he wasn't going mad. He sprinted across the lawn barefoot, adrenaline surging. But the street was dead quiet. No cars, no movement. Every porch light was off, even ones normally left on. Like the whole block had shut down. His phone buzzed again. A new text, this time with a video attachment. Hand trembling, Marcus tapped play. The footage froze him in place. It was from inside his bedroom, filmed during the day. He could see himself sleeping peacefully earlier that morning, completely unaware someone stood in the corner, recording him from the shadows. The video ended abruptly as another text appeared. "Go back inside." Marcus turned slowly toward his home. The living room window blazed with artificial light now, the curtains wide open. And in the window stood a figure, tall, pitch black in silhouette, face pressed to the glass in a grotesque smile. Marcus screamed for help, but no sound left his throat. His phone slipped from his hand, screen cracking, and the last thing he saw was his own reflection in the window, merging with that shadow, indistinguishable. By the time investigators entered the house days later, Marcus was gone. The only evidence left was writing still etched into the fog on the window. Still watching. Story 3. The Late Night Passenger. The Mysterious Rider. Derek was a taxi driver who often worked the night shift. He liked the silence of the city after midnight, the empty streets, the glow of neon signs, and the way the world seemed a little less crowded. But nights like that always carried an edge of unpredictability. It was near 2 a.m. when the dispatch buzzed through his car radio, a pickup request from the edge of town on Riverbend Road. Derek frowned. He knew Riverbend well. It was a stretch of road backed by forest, dim streetlights broken in long patches. Not the kind of place you'd want to be stranded at that hour. He pulled up after a 10-minute drive and saw her, a young woman standing beneath a flickering light post. Her dress was pale, fluttering in the breeze that barely existed, and her skin looked almost washed out in the weak light. She didn't wave, didn't smile, just slid silently into the back seat when he unlocked the door. "Where to?" Derek asked, adjusting his mirror so he could see her. For a moment she didn't answer. Then softly, almost too softly, she whispered an address across town, a street he didn't recognize. As he pulled away, Derek kept glancing in the mirror. She sat perfectly still, hands folded in her lap, eyes fixed straight ahead. She hadn't blinked once. The eerie part wasn't just her silence. It was that her faint reflection in the window seemed off. Like her lips moved slightly, as if muttering something he couldn't hear. She suddenly leaned forward, her voice sharp. "Don't take the highway. Stay on the back roads." Derek's grip on the wheel tightened, a cold unease pooling in his stomach. But when he glanced back at her again, her seat was empty. The reappearance. Derek slammed the brakes, heart crashing inside his chest. The car screeched to a halt in the middle of the deserted road. His wide eyes whipped to the back seat. Empty. Just the faint indentation where she had been sitting. He stumbled over his words. "What the? No, no, no!" Panic welled up. But before he could collect himself, a sharp tap rattled against the passenger side window. He turned his head slowly. She was there, standing outside his car, inches from the glass, gazing in with those pale, haunting eyes. Derek's body froze. How had she gotten outside? He hadn't heard the door open, hadn't seen her move. But when he blinked, she wasn't there anymore. Instead, she was suddenly in the back seat again, perfectly composed, staring at him through the rearview mirror. "Keep driving," she whispered. As if nothing unusual had happened, his skin prickled, every nerve screaming to escape. But his body seemed chained to the wheel. He pressed on the gas, tires crunching gravel, heading deeper into the rural back roads. The map on his GPS glitched, the screen flickering distortions that showed no roads, only endless black. Glancing in the mirror again, Derek noticed something that nearly made him swerve. The woman's reflection didn't match her movements. In real life, she sat still, head tilted toward the window, but in the mirror, her face was pressed unnervingly close to his, a smile warping across her features. And then her reflection mouthed clear words he couldn't unsee. "Stop the car, we're here. The wrong destination." Derek's breath quickened as he pulled the car over onto a gravel path branching into the woods. He didn't even remember turning onto it, yet the car had followed her command instinctively, as though she controlled his steering. The engine idled under the heavy blanket of forest silence. Derek turned slightly to confront her, but the woman was already pushing open her door. "Wait, you haven't paid yet," he blurted, clinging to logic. She didn't answer, just drifted out of the car, bare feet crunching gravel, her pale dress brushing the ground. Against his better judgment, Derek followed. The air in the forest smelled damp, metallic, and wrong. He realized quickly there were no houses here, no roads, only endless trees gnawing at the night sky. His phone buzzed suddenly. He pulled it out in shaky relief, hoping for help. One unread message, unknown number. It was a picture. His headlights illuminated it. A grainy shot of him right now, standing in the forest. And behind him, her. Only in the photo her mouth was stretched, unhinged, like a snake ready to strike. Fear doused him as he spun around. She wasn't directly behind him, but somewhere deeper among the shadows he heard her voice. Clear, sharp, and impossibly close. "Why did you follow me?" The chase branches snapped in the distance. Derek's instincts screamed at him to run back to the safety of his cab. He sprinted, lungs burning, stumbling over roots and rocks. His headlights glowed faintly in the distance, the one fragile tether to reality. Behind him, her voice echoed without direction. "Leaving so soon?" It was sing-song, mocking, sliding between the trees like smoke. Then footsteps, soft at first, then rapidly intensifying, closing in no matter which way he twisted. He broke through the brush, leaping toward his car, yanking the door open, slamming it shut. Hands trembling, Derek turned the ignition. The car coughed, sputtered, and died. His chest collapsed under the crushing silence. Then came the tapping again. Not from one side this time, all the windows. Dozens of small knocks, like fingers drumming eagerly on glass. Derek's head whipped around in terror. Shapes moved at the edges of the woods, pale. Fluttering dresses gliding closer under the blue headlights' glow. Not one woman. Dozens, each identical to her, all stepping into the clearing, eyes locked on his cab. Their whispers building to a chorus. "We're here. We're here. We're here." Inside, Derek locked every door, curling up. But when he dared glance at the back seat, one of them was already inside, the final passenger. She leaned forward, her icy breath brushing Derek's ear. Whispering almost gently, she said, "This was the fare you shouldn't have taken." Her hand, unnaturally cold, pressed against his shoulder as the others outside circled the cab, palms sliding across the windows, teeth flashing in the darkness. Derek screamed, slamming the ignition again. This time the engine roared to life, but it was too late. The woman's reflection filled every mirror, her pale face multiplied endlessly, smiling with jagged teeth. The windshield suddenly spider-webbed, a crack exploding across the glass, as ghostly hands pounded on every side. Derek floored the gas, tires spinning mud, trying desperately to burst out of the forest path. His headlights jolted violently as he veered left, right, finally braking onto asphalt again. For a moment, his relief swelled. Escape! He forced himself to glance in the rearview mirror. Empty back seat, empty road, nothing following him. But when he finally slowed his car, catching shaky breaths, ready to phone the police, he saw the meter on his cab's dashboard. It ticked unnaturally on its own. Fare completed. Total charge, $6.66. Then the cab's radio crackled alive with the dispatcher's voice. "New pickup request, Riverbend Road, passenger waiting." And before Derek could even react, the back door of his cab unlocked with a soft, slow click. The passenger had never left. Story 4. The neighbor upstairs. Strange sounds. Lena had moved into her new apartment only 2 weeks ago. A cozy one-bedroom on the 3rd floor of a creaky old building. Cheap, but charming. Most of the tenants were quiet retirees or workers who came and went without much fuss. The only empty apartment, as the landlord had told her, was the one just above hers, number 402. On her first night there, lying in bed, Lena heard it. Footsteps. Slow, dragging footsteps across the ceiling. She frowned, puzzled. Maybe the landlord was wrong about that apartment being empty. She brushed it off, assuming someone had moved in quietly. But the footsteps returned every night, always after midnight. Sometimes a steady pacing back and forth, sometimes a scrabbling sound, like someone dragging furniture across the floor. Once she swore she heard the faint thud of something heavy dropping. One evening, Lena finally decided to catch her upstairs neighbor by surprise. She waited by her peephole until the sounds began, then rushed out into the hallway. She stared at the stairwell. No one came down, no doors opened. When she tiptoed upstairs, she found the door to 402 locked, cold air seeping from the crack beneath. Something felt wrong. She pressed her ear against the wood. On the other side, someone whispered, a deep, raspy, breathless whisper. "I know you're listening." Lena jerked back, heart hammering. The stairwell light fizzed overhead, plunging her into momentary darkness. When it flickered back on, she could swear the doorknob to 402 had shifted slightly, as though someone inside had just released it. The hollow apartment. The next morning, Lena confronted the landlord. He shook his head firmly. "No one lives in 402. It's been locked up for months, still waiting for repairs." He rattled his keychain. "Even I don't go in there without good reason." Lena pressed him about the noises. Reluctantly, he agreed to take her upstairs to check. The scent hit them immediately when he pried open the door. Stale, rancid air, thick with dust. The apartment was barren. No furniture, no electricity. Light leaked weakly through closed blinds, painting strips of gloom across cracked walls. The landlord insisted she look. "See, empty, no one here." He tapped the dusty floorboards. No footprints. If someone were pacing, we'd see it. It was true, the dust lay undisturbed, layered thick, yet Lena's stomach curdled. Something about the room felt used. She noticed faint scratches near the far corner of the wall, vertical, like long nails clawed downward. The smell seemed stronger there too, metallic and damp. She swallowed hard. They left quickly, the landlord shaking his head, muttering about her imagination. That night, Lena sat in her living room, trying to calm down with the TV humming quietly. But then the footsteps began again, heavier now, dragging as if carrying weight. She froze, dread stealing the breath from her lungs. When she pressed her palm to the ceiling, the footsteps stopped instantly, and from directly above her hand, the faintest laugh trickled down through the plaster, low, mocking, scratching in the walls. Sleep became impossible. Lena lay awake night after night, staring at her ceiling, listening. Sometimes she imagined the footsteps circling her bed, other times scraping down the walls. Then came a new sound that made her blood run ice cold. Scratching. It was faint at first, buried behind the plaster. But over several nights it grew sharper, closer, unmistakable. A fingernail dragging down the walls of her room. She pressed her ear against the wall and nearly screamed when, through the thin material, something scraped loudly back. It wasn't random. It was responding. Her phone lit up suddenly with a notification. A new message from an unknown number. And it showed a picture of her, asleep in bed. The photo had been taken from above, her blanket slightly pulled back, her hair spilling across her pillow. Lena's head twisted upward to her ceiling. Her body stiffened as she noticed it, a faint crack running across one corner, crumbling plaster. Her skin crawled as the scratching sound grew louder, right above her. She pulled her blanket over herself like false armor. But then, faintly through the crack, dust sprinkled down from above. With it came something else, soft whispered words seeping from inside the wall itself. "We like watching you sleep." The breaking point. By the fourth night, Lena was at her breaking point. Exhausted and rattled, she barricaded her bedroom door with furniture, telling herself it was all in her head. But deep down she knew the sound wouldn't stop. At exactly 3:12 a.m. the noises surged. Not just footsteps, not just scratching. Now pounding, frantic thuds shaking her ceiling as if someone were running back and forth directly above. The plaster crack widened, dust raining across her blanket. She cried out and covered her ears, but the barrage only grew louder, impossible to ignore. Suddenly, silence. Smothering, absolute. She dared a shallow breath. The silence lasted too long. And then it came. A deliberate, heavy knock. 3 slow pounds. Not on the ceiling this time, on her bedroom door. Lena stumbled back, nearly tripping over the chair she had wedged against it. Her phone buzzed again. She lifted it with trembling hands. A new picture message loaded slowly. When it appeared, her throat closed up. It was her front door, taken from inside her apartment. Someone was snapping pictures as they moved closer. She clamped a hand over her mouth, listening. Another knock, this time at her living room wall. Then at the kitchen. Then her bathroom door. It bounced around her apartment, circling her, hemming her in. She couldn't bring herself to check if any of her locks still held. Somehow she knew they were already inside. The apartment above, desperation set in. Lena called 911, sobbing into the phone, begging for help. The dispatcher asked for her address, stayed calm, promised help was coming. Relief flickered faintly in Lena's chest, that is, until she heard the dispatcher's voice glitch oddly. Then shift into a low whisper. "We're already here." Her phone screen fizzed static, the call dropping into a blank screen. At that same moment, the ceiling crack tore wider with a hideous snapping sound. A hand, bone-pale, fingers elongated with thick cracked nails, pushed through the plaster, clawing its way into her room. Another hand followed. Then a face pushing through darkness, skin stretched too tight, eyes milky white. Lena screamed, sprinting to her front door, fumbling with chains and bolts. But she stopped dead when she noticed. The door was unlocked, wide open. The hallway stretched black, and from above it, leaning over the railing from the fourth-floor landing, dozens of shadows peered down at her, all whispering in unison. "You shouldn't have listened." The landlord found her apartment the next morning with all doors locked from the inside. Her belongings were scattered, the ceiling corner ripped wide apart, but Lena was gone. And every tenant swore since that night. The footsteps upstairs have never stopped. Story 5. The Man at the Wrong Door. Jason was no stranger to late nights. He worked remotely, often coding until well past midnight, his headphones drowning out the silence of his dim apartment. But one night at exactly 3:09 a.m., a noise startled him out of his focus. A knock at his front door. It wasn't hurried or polite. It was slow, heavy, deliberate. 3 raps spaced far apart. He froze at his desk, headphones dangling, wondering who would show up at such an hour. Peeking through the peephole, his stomach knotted. A man stood inches from the door, head lowered, shoulders heaving faintly as if he were breathing too hard. He wasn't swaying like a drunk or fidgeting nervously. He stood unnaturally still, as if waiting for Jason to unlock the chain. Jason whispered to himself, "Don't engage. Call the cops." But as he pulled out his phone, the man's head tilted upward sharply, staring right into the peephole, his eyes locking onto Jason's with unnerving precision. Jason stumbled back, a curse escaping his lips. How could the man possibly know he was watching? The knock came again, this time louder, rattling the frame. Then, faintly muffled through the door, the man's voice rasped in a low, trembling tone. "Jason." "Let me in, I left my things inside." Jason's blood iced over. This wasn't a stranger randoming knocking. Somehow he knew Jason's name. The stranger who knows too much. Every instinct screamed at Jason to ignore him, to shut off the lights and wait it out. But paranoia won. The man knew his name. How? He double-checked every lock, bolted windows, and backed away from the door. In the quiet, his phone buzzed with a new message. "Unknown number." His breath hitched as he read it aloud. "Why'd you change the locks?" Cold sweat drenched his back. Only a handful of people even knew he'd replaced them last month. Was it a former tenant? A neighbor messing with him? Shoving those thoughts aside, Jason tiptoed toward his bedroom, determined to barricade himself until morning. Yet the house betrayed him. His floorboards groaned with every step, echoing in the silent night. The man outside began humming, quietly at first, then louder, a crooked lullaby muffled by the door. Jason's heart rammed his chest like a fist. Then buzz, another text, a picture, his hallway. Taken from inside, Jason's legs wobbled, pulse shrieking. If the man was outside, how did he snap a photo across Jason's apartment? His stomach plunged. He sprinted back to the door and checked the peephole again. Empty. But then, clear as breath on his neck, came the hushed whisper, "Too slow. I'm already inside." The intruder's game. Jason stumbled back, gripping a lamp like a weapon, his eyes darting frantically around the dark corners of his apartment. Every shadow seemed stretched, twisted, alive. He turned all the lights on, room by room, until the harsh glow exposed nothing. Still, the certainty gnawed at him. He wasn't alone anymore. Another notification chirped. Hands trembling, he lifted the phone. Another photo. This one worse. It showed him right now holding the lamp. The angle was from behind his shoulder. Jason whirled in panic. No one was there. Breathless, he picked up the phone and hurried to dial 911. But when the line connected, what came through chilled his marrow. Not a dispatcher. The same humming voice, now clearer, surrounding him. As though the man was every voice in the room, Jason's survival instincts kicked in. He ran to the kitchen, grabbed the largest knife and positioned his back against the counter. "Come out!" he demanded, voice cracking. At first, silence. Then, the low squeak of hinges. He whipped his head around in horror. His closet door was half open now, when he was certain it had been shut minutes ago. The silence stretched before slowly knock-knock, a knock, this time against the inside of his bedroom closet door. The false escape. Jason bolted. Knife white-knuckled in his hand, he sprinted for the door, fumbling with deadbolts. His body screamed for just one thing: run. The door finally wrenched open, spilling him into the hallway. Adrenaline surged, until he noticed something that nearly stopped his heart. All the other tenants' doors, units he knew were usually locked, stood slightly ajar. Each hallway light flickered unnaturally, plunging the corridor into a rhythm of light and dark. Shadows shifted where no one stood. He dashed toward the stairwell, every door creaking open a little wider as he passed, as though encouraging him to step inside. He stumbled down 2 flights, desperate for the street-level exit. But when he reached the lobby, his breath collapsed in his lungs. The glass door had been bricked over. Solid wall. His exit didn't exist anymore. Behind him, the hummed lullaby returned, echoing down the stairwell. And then from above, doors slammed shut one by one with deafening force. 402, 302, 202, all echoing downward until only his remained. Jason collapsed to his knees. He realized with skin-crawling horror. The intruder wasn't following him. The building itself was slowly caging him, and then another buzz in his pocket. One more text. "Nice try. Go home." The wrong home. Shaking, Jason staggered back upstairs in blind panic. He didn't know where else to go, but his door, his unit, seemed safer than the hollow building that had turned on him. He shoved it shut, locked everything twice, leaning against it, gasping. The humming stopped. The silence settled unnaturally heavy. Jason tried to believe he'd beaten it, that the intruder had given up. But when he turned, cold dread iced his veins. His apartment no longer looked like his. Same layout, yes, but the photos on the wall weren't his. The furniture was older, dust-choked, unfamiliar. He spun frantic circles. The air smelled of mildew, rotting meat, and then he saw the mirror. A tall, cracked mirror leaned against the wall, one he'd never owned. In it, his reflection smiled back at him, even though his own mouth was twisted in a scream. From the reflection's cracked grin, he heard the man's voice again, calm now, final. "You opened the wrong door. And now this home is mine." Jason lunged at the mirror in a desperate swing, only for the glass to shatter outward. The last thing he felt was hands, many cold hands yanking him through to the other side. His apartment returned to normal the next morning. Police found no trace of forced entry, only Jason's phone on the floor. One final message still glowing on its cracked screen. "Home sweet home.